Okay, you guys, today we're going to talk about leading yourself well. I've just got a few little thoughts, and I've had a few of you guys listening to some Andy Stanley leadership podcasts, and I just love what his podcasts are about, because they definitely make me kind of think about kind of what's important and what I need to be kind of thinking about to get myself kind of back on track. And I think that we are just now we're starting to open up. Do you guys see New York is opening up? So it's time for us to start thinking about live events again. We're going to be able to do some of that. You could probably do some in-home events. I think people are getting more comfortable. So we want to be putting some things on our calendar. And this is a really good time to talk about leading ourselves well. So how do you guys feel like you do with leading yourself? What does that mean to you?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
I said, so how do you feel like you do in leading yourself, or what does leading yourself well mean to you? Missy.
So here's what I'm thinking it means is that, and today was a great example, that sometimes I think I'm leading myself, but I'm really fooling myself. And today, when I realized, oh, rats, called all my customers for their customer.
Missy, we're losing you.
Call. Today, in about an hour and a half, I got all of that done. And if I were home, I'm not leading myself. So I have time to get that done yet. So for me, leading myself might need to be more, put some restraints so that I know I'll do better when I'm.
Okay, and you're breaking up just a little bit, but I think we got the gist of that.
I just learned that, not I just learned that, but I thought about that today before you even asked it. So I don't know if that's what you think leading yourself is, but it's clear to me that I have to do some things to make my life go easier. And
okay, Missy, you are frozen again. Okay, Missy, you're kind of coming in and out, but I think we got the gist of what you said. Who else?
I think for me, Reagan, it's Jennifer. I think part of leading yourself is making sure that you are following through on, what you say you're going to do, and especially and following up with people, right? Or following through with what you say you're going to do with people. So if you're going to call somebody back, make sure you're doing it. So I think that's a big part of it. And then I think what Missy said too, I would agree, because I let myself get distracted, right? And like something else will come up and I'm like, oh, well, that was my teensy time, but boy, that sure looks good to go do this or go do that. And so making sure that you're also sticking to the schedule that you create for yourself, which I have a tendency to get distracted on. Something else always seems to pop up.
Yeah, so maybe having a schedule, right? And having it in the schedule works well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's a great bridge. So I thought this was kind of an interesting concept. So there's really 3 reasons to be a good self-leader, okay? Well, first of all, I think first leading yourself is that your first rule there is that you have to admit you've been there for every bad decision you've ever made. Okay, so you have to say, I've been there for every bad decision I've ever made. I am the mastermind behind all of my own regrets, right? So we take responsibility for that first. I thought that was good. And then 3 reasons to be a good self-leader is 1, you guys might want to write this down if you're taking notes. You won't be a leader worth following if you don't lead yourself well. 2 is exceptional self-leadership is necessary for continued influence. And I kind of feel like that's what we do here when we start to build organizations and bring people on, right? And it's the key to sustained performance. So leading yourself well is super, super important, and you've got to lead yourself first. So, You don't have to be in charge to take charge of leading yourself, right? So I'm going to just leave you with these 3 things, and we can kind of talk about each one. There's 3 decisions every leader needs to make. Number 1, I will not lie to myself even when the truth makes me feel bad. So you want to be brutally honest with yourself, and then I love this. Why am I doing this really? And adding the really at the end. So it's kind of like, Jen, you just said, well, something else pops up. So, why am I avoiding this really, right? Are you being creatively avoidant? Why, right? So why am I doing this really? It's never comfortable or fun, but essential that you ask this. So again, realizing that you're taking responsibility for leading yourself, right? So what are some instances where you guys feel like, why am I doing this really would be a good question to ask yourself? What happens?
Fear sets in. I might ask myself that when I'm procrastinating.
Yeah, why am I procrastinating really? And what would the answer be for the last time you did that, Jenna?
I would say a fear of hearing no, or a fear of, being afraid of what someone's going to think about me or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just avoidance.
And is that a valid feeling, or is that like an old habit?
No, it's definitely an old habit for sure.
Yeah. So maybe asking yourself when you start to feel that way, why am I feeling this way really? That you can say, oh, that's ridiculous, I'm going to do it anyway. Like we all have those little tendencies, right? So what else?
So I agree with Jenna, because I just went through that today. And when I got home from work, and it's like, I'm going to call this person. And it's like, I kept putting it off. And then it's like, I'm going to call him. And all he can do is say no. And then he didn't answer the phone. So, and he didn't have a voice message. So it's like, okay, so now I get to do it again tomorrow. But yeah,
good.
that fear of rejection. So
yeah, that comes up a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I've had one where I'm like, okay, I'm not calling anybody today. Why am I doing that really? Well, because I don't have anybody to call, I need to get my funnel filled. And I feel like, living up here in the mountains and all of that. So what did I do the other day? I'm like, okay, that's ridiculous. So I joined a new networking group that has live luncheons here in Denver. So, I paid the $300 and I'm going. I've already booked my lunch and I'm going to go. I don't know what will come of it. And I know there's another Juice Plus lady in there, but oh well. And in worst case scenario, I make some new friends. So I'm just like, you know what? I've got to get out of my house. I've just got to do it. Okay. The second one is, I will prioritize what I value most over what I want right now. So when would this come up for you? I will prioritize what I value most over what I want right now.
This one probably came up for me today, actually. So I literally could have had the whole afternoon to get work done or do something with Juice Plus, and I had the opportunity to go play volleyball. So I was like, oh, that sounds fun, because I didn't play Sunday. So I went.
Okay.
And that doesn't serve. So like maybe I wanted to do that right now, but it doesn't serve me if I want to move forward in my business.
Exactly.
Right? So creative distraction.
That is a great example. And I know for me, when I finally decided that, you know what, I'm going to treat this business like a business, I felt like the devil was against me, because as soon as I laid out like my work time and had my calls laid out and who I would, the events I was going to do, is when, 3 of my girlfriends wanted to go on a bike ride or wanted to meet me for coffee or whatever. And I ended up getting really good at saying, you know what, I have some appointments right now, but they were with myself, but I can't do it now, but I can do it tomorrow. So I would put it in my calendar. That I think has been key to, making it to the top of the marketing plan for me, was making myself what I wanted, which, why did I want that? So it goes back to, we talked about our why, weeks ago. What's your why? Like, is your decision today, is that what you value most, or is it what you want right now? would it be better for you to say, gosh, you know what, I can play on that next game, but I can't today because I have a bunch of appointments. And people don't need to know what those appointments are, right? So it's just kind of like, it depends on what you're valuing. Are you valuing exercise versus dessert, basically, right? It's a lot easier to eat dessert. Patty.
So just a question about that. And I was just thinking, Jennifer, you could have really killed two birds with one stone, because you
Yeah.
could have certainly gone and done your volleyball, which was great, but you could have also maybe made a couple of connections while you were there. Is like Sue does that all the time, don't you, Sue? Where you're playing golf or whatever you're doing. Reagan, I know you've done that too. And so you might be enjoying yourself and having a little fun, but you're always prepared with your little packets and your card and ready to say, hey, I don't know if this is for you, but I'd love to share it with you, kind of a thing.
Yeah, for sure. And unfortunately today, not so much, just because I've already shared with these two, but yeah, but you're absolutely right. You can totally make sure if that's my intention, right? That if I go do that, then my intention has to be to share, right? Yeah.
Well, one thing I think Sue does really well is I know that she sets a time to do her customer care and her follow-up. And I've seen her calendar, and it's amazing how organized she is with what she's got going on. So that's why it gets done, because she makes it. And if it's during that time, Sue, you don't usually make an exception to that.
I have given up more workouts and more golf games and more this that I'd really rather do than I care to share with everybody. But I make sure if I've got to call somebody, they get called at this time. And even if in my own mind, I always I hear Mr. Todd Falcone all the time going, are you a professional? And if you are, then you're going to call the people when you tell them you're going to call them, and you're going to follow up with when you tell them you're going to follow up with them.
That's right.
Yes. And thank you for that.
Yeah, I know. You have an amazing schedule, which I'm always impressed with. Okay. So have you guys, anybody, go ahead, Missy.
With that, Sue, I assume you also schedule your golf games and some other things, so you're not only doing Juice Plus. Otherwise, it kind of defeats the purpose of why we're doing this.
Well, if I may, I'm just going to answer that quickly, Reagan. The other thing, Misty, is I always tie it in with sharing. So to me, it's never wasted time, because I've always got things that I can be handing out, talk to people. Even if I talked to them about Juice Plus last week, I'll always go, hey, we've talked about Juice Plus before, but who do you know that may want to make an extra $200 to $500 a month? And you always can bring up something related to that and maybe get some more contacts. And it gives a positive spin, at least, on what you're up to.
I really think two important things have been touched on here, and that is, number one, some sacrifice, but number two, how you weave this into everything. The best network marketers do it in stolen moments. And I think that a lot of you have talked about that tonight, but also there's kind of a principle sometimes with sacrifice. And sometimes when you let go of the good, it opens the space for the great. And I've never read Good to Great, but I think that concept is important. And I think that there are seasons for that. So I feel like you guys did a great job of touching on some of that, and just thinking back on my own journey, how that has worked.
Yep.
And I agree with that too. I just want to say, I think, like, for me, if I don't I just love how you were talking about Susan and how she does her day. And like, if I don't put it in my calendar, whatever it is, it doesn't happen.
Me too.
And that's such a good reminder, because I can just fill it up. And
That's why you want to schedule those follow-up appointments when you talk to somebody, so it's on your calendar, you don't have to think about them again.
But just even following up the 2x2x2 or whatever, just making all those things really important, because if not, they just don't happen.
Yeah, like, when are you doing that? Do you have an office time scheduled, right? So
Right. Yep.
So there's a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and it has an exercise called the funeral exercise. Have you guys heard of that? It's, you write down, what would you want people in your life to say about you? So what would you want your husband to say about you at your funeral? What would you want your friend? What would you want the customer you just talked to? What would you want them to say about you? Because you don't want to get to the end of your life and not understand what you really value most, right? So that's a really good little exercise, is to, if you're trying to figure out what do you value, you know, to me, I want people to think that, you know, they can trust me and that I was there for them, and, you know, I did a good job and things like that, right? So you guys can kind of go through that. And Andy Stanley also talked about, again, he got back into, don't define yourself here by not goals. Like, oh, well, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be over that. I'm not going to do that. Kind of, you know, that's not where you want to go with it. You want to do, you know, what you do want, right? You know, what are you leading yourself towards is basically the idea there. Okay. All right. The third one is, I will not attempt to lead myself by myself. So who are you around? Our friends determine the direction and quality of our lives. And we do life in community with people who share our interests and our values, or hopefully so. So he said, one thing, I loved this statement. He says, ultimate is often threatening to people who value immediate. So you go back to, like, when I already had phone calls set up and those girlfriends called me for coffee, you know, some of them were a little ticked that I wouldn't drop everything and just, you know, they knew I was at home with my kids. Why couldn't I just drop everything and go have coffee? And I was like, well, because my family is more important and I want to pay for my kids to go to private school. And so I can meet you tomorrow, right? So some of those people I chose not to hang out with anymore because I didn't really like their persnickety attitude about it. And they obviously weren't there to lift me up and say, oh my gosh, it's so great that you're, you know, building an empire for your family, you know, instead of, like, you should just be able to do what you want whenever you want. So, you know, it was a sacrifice, but it wasn't a sacrifice because it was following my value of wanting to be there for my children, right? So when have you guys had an experience like that where you've, you know, thought, gosh, you know what, I probably need to be careful with these people that I'm around, my community, because I need to be around people that are going to do what I value, right?
Reagan, I can speak to that. This is Jill. I'm kind of preoccupied with the baby, but for me lately, it's been a lot about intentionally choosing who I give my time to, and feeling okay with detaching with love from toxic relationships.
Yes.
And and not feeling the guilt and the shame of that, just owning it, because we all have 24 hours in a day. And if we're not surrounded by people who lift us up and trying to lift others up, not taking on their responsibilities, but just through our own energy and authenticity and genuine, like, heart in the world, then I feel like it's a waste of time. And I feel like it's just draining. It's exhausting to play the game. And I don't want to do that. And it's hard because a lot of times it's with family, in my personal experience. And that's the hardest type of relationship, to just be honest with myself and say, you know what, I love you, I accept you for who you are, but I'm not doing this bullshit anymore.
Yeah.
And it is so freeing to just lift those weights off of my shoulders, and then to choose who I want to spend and give my time to. Thanks.
That's great.
So awesome, Jill, because I think I so feel where you're at. And I feel like, Reagan, you coached me through a lot of this as a young mom. Like, you can give yourself over. And as women, I'm just going to talk to women for a second. We get like kind of culturized to do this, right? You just give yourself over to whoever needs you, whatever beckons your attention. And you can just give yourself over to the toxic forces of whatever is out there, right? And it is, for some people, it's family, or it's the community you live in, or it's whatever. And when you make that decision that it's going to be different for me, my kids are going to see me do it differently, I am going to make an impact rather than be impacted. Like this, this kind of energetic force happens. And it's really, I just over and over see so many people do this in Juice Plus. And I think it's that decision of, I am going to impact and make a difference versus being impacted, being a made difference upon whatever forces come upon me.
Good. Excellent.
Thanks, Ellen. Yeah.
All right.
Get it, girl.
So just to recap, you guys, you want to be a good self-leader so that you're somebody worth following, right? That you can continue your influence and sustain your performance. And then the 3 decisions everybody needs to make is you won't lie to yourself, even if it makes you feel bad. What am I doing real? Why am I doing this really? Remember, you add on the really. You'll prioritize what I will prioritize what I value most over what I want right now. And I will not attempt to lead myself by myself. I will be part of that community of people that will lift me up. So that's all I have for you guys tonight. Any comments? Any ahas?
Can I just tell you, Reagan, that you have always been an awesome leader, and you always have. You've always supported, I think, each and every one of us. And I know my little chats with you every week, just to share with you what's been going on. I mean, they're what, minute and a half, maybe, just to give you a little weekly update on what's what. But I think most importantly, you've managed to incorporate everybody with Juice Plus that wants to be moving ahead and wanting to do more. You have them getting on the calls, you have little contests to keep us excited and making a moolah. And just because you're just a wonderful, positive leader. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Well, you know what? Sometimes I'm not a very good self-leader either, just so you guys know. I mean, I definitely go through my ups and my downs, and I appreciate you saying that. But I do try to show up. I do try to show up for our team, but it's different to also show up for yourself, you know? And so that's when you want, what you really want to do is focus on showing up for yourself, because it's easy to show up for other people sometimes. So I struggle with that too sometimes, especially, you know, after being home for so long, you know, you start to kind of get your own self-doubts and things like that too. So we all can work on this. And then also, speaking of the contest, thank you for reminding me of that. Did you guys see that Ellen and I put out a contest for May 1st, starting for May? Did you guys all see that? It takes 2. Okay.
No.
So for anybody that you guys bring on Frontline that does Partner Plus, we're going to double your sponsor bonus. And so now's the time to really be setting up your summer by inviting some people to join your team and getting them going. And, you know, it only takes 3 trio orders, you guys, to have them fast track. So let's get some people some success and help them make a paycheck right away. And I mean, that could be their mom's order, their husband's order, and their order, and they're there. So you get a double sponsor, but you can do with it whatever you want. If you want to pay it forward or you want to split it with your person, you can do whatever you want. But we're going to reward the sponsors this month.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Now, is that only if they do Partner Plus in the 10-day window, or is that just the month?
Either one. So
total?
whatever your bonus is, whatever they did for the month of May, you get that. So if they did the express track, we'll double that. If they did the slow track, we'll double that.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right, you guys, have a beautiful week and take some time. You know, sometimes it's good to take some time to kind of think about yourself, giving you permission to be a little bit selfish over the next day or so, and just take some time to go back through and answer some of those questions, like, why do I do this really? And maybe do the funeral exercise and think about what would I like, you know, my mom to say, what would I like my friend to say, and go through it like that, not just make it generalized, and see what you value. And I'd love to hear more about how that comes out for you guys over the week. Maybe share on Voxer with us or whatever. Okay.
Thank you. And thanks for that extra bonus.
Such a great call. Thank you, Reagan.
Thank you.
Great call.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Love you guys.